Welcome, friends, to the Dr. Pontificus podcast. I am your humble host, the eponymous Pontificus himself, overly emphatic voice of reason and compassion in this circus of chaos we affectionately call the American culture. In this episode, dear listeners, we finally get around to digging up the root of all evil, yes, capitalism, or as I, Dr. Pontificus, like to call it, our crap-based economy. Enjoy! Hello, my astute listeners. So here in the crap-based economy, everything we've been talking about comes together. The feeding of the alphas, toxic individualism, the culture of cruelty, all wrapped up into one big fat economic system. Now, don't get me wrong. Capitalism is not without its uses. It's very, very good at creating a whole lot of crap for a whole lot of people very cheaply. It drives technological innovation. It has indeed transformed the face of the earth. Hell, you can see us from space now. Thanks, capitalism. Wow. Just wow. But capitalism doesn't need me to sing its praises. Why? Self-promotion is built right into the system. So let's just get down to the crap, shall we? The system's in a little denial about all that, kind of narcissistic of it. So what do I, Dr. Pontificus, mean by the crap-based economy? Well, that capitalism produces a load of crap that's crappy for the environment, but beyond that, it creates crappy conditions for humanity. And even more than that, capitalism creates crappy human beings. And that's our crap-based economy. So where to begin? With the obvious, I suppose, but if any of this were really that obvious, we would do something about it, wouldn't we? But capitalism anesthetizes us while it slowly poisons us, like any good drug dealer. So one of the things that capitalism does very, very well is mass production. And this is how it allegedly works. Driven by greed and gluttony, the great tentacled leviathan of free enterprise creates a hive mind of viral entrepreneurs swarming over the boughs of the earth, creating great webs of supply chains, sucking out those raw materials into refineries and factories, and pumping out finished goods through a great matrix of warehouses and distribution centers and shops and stores and peddlers galore that we affectionately call the free market. And I, Dr. Pontificus, have lost count of how many metaphors were mixed there, alas. Now then, just look around and you can see the crap-based economy everywhere because we are literally drowning in crap. Everything we could possibly want, things we haven't even dreamed of yet, and certainly more than we could ever possibly need or use everywhere, all the time, for a price. Rampant materialism becomes the central focus for our lives, the measure of our success, things that are supposed to make us fulfilled, but we're never really full, are we? Because when it comes down to it, it's really just an addiction, and here's how it works. I call it the Christmas effect. So remember when you were a little kid, and believe me, we are all children as far as capitalism is concerned. So, as soon as Halloween was over, you start thinking about Santa Claus. You start making your list, dreaming day and night about that sack full of toys, the anticipation building and building until it becomes so deep and agonizing that you can't sleep. You're up all night on Christmas Eve listening for any sound, forbidden to peek out until morning. And there it is under the tree, glittering under the twinkling lights. There it is, the thing on the top of your list, your prize for being a good little girl smaller boy. Oh, and the rush of dopamine and endorphins that flood your wee little brain as you embrace the thing and your life is fulfilled at last as you have and hold the best thing ever for about 6 weeks, maybe? Because the rush wears off so quickly, doesn't it? And that thing, the wonderful, prized thing, quickly gets old and tired and ends up in your closet with the last great thing and the thing before that and the thing before that, because what you really, truly want isn't that thing, but the rush of getting the thing. And when the rush dies off, when those chemicals fade from the brain, it's like withdrawal. You need it again and again and again. And our entire economic system is built and sustained through this burst of neurotransmitters. It's as potent as any drug ever concocted. It's frighteningly effective. Capitalism infantilizes us, turns us into short-sighted, instant gratification addicts. We shop as a form of recreation. Shopping therapy is a thing, for God's sake. We watch other people shop on TV or TikTok or Instagram or YouTube, whichever attention addiction we're into today, to get our fix vicariously. Shopping drives us, gives us purpose, makes us competitive, aggressive, willing to stampede over our fellow humans on Black Friday. And let's pause before we get into the toll all of this materialism takes on our minds and our spirits, and just look at what it does to everything else. Okay, so have you ever been in the back of a Goodwill? You know, the place where you drop off the donations. It's stacked from floor to ceiling with everyone's crap. We have so much crap, we can't fit it into our bigger and bigger houses. We can't put our cars into our garages because they've turned into storage room, along with the sheds in the backyard and the attic and the basement and the spare room. And that's not enough, so we have to rent out storage buildings. And then that's not enough, so we have to have yard sales where we can exchange our crap with our neighbor's crap. Not yard sales, crap exchanges, because even though we don't need all this crap, we can't let go of it because we're addicted to crap. And this great big crap exchange is what makes the whole economy go round. We all need to keep buying crap to pay the people making the crap and shipping the crap and stocking the crap and running the cash register to sell the crap, so that all these people make money to buy their share of crap from someone else. So capitalism is really just about keeping all the money flowing around and around and around, and making and selling a bunch of crap is a good way to do that, maybe? And remember, capitalism is amoral. It simply doesn't register that something is good or bad for you or the environment or anyone else. Just keep the money moving, keep the crap flowing, keep triggering those little dopamine bursts. Yay, economics. Let I, Dr. Pontificus, give you just 2 examples. First of all, junk mail. Hell, crap is written right into the name. I didn't ask for it. I don't want it. But somehow it keeps appearing in my mailbox and goes straight into the recycle bin, and for most people goes right into the trash. So we chop down a tree, we reduce it to pulp, press it into paper, print some paper, send it to people who don't want it, and put it right into a landfill. Untold thousands of trees grown to become trash. All because maybe some teeny tiny fraction of junk mail will actually generate business for somebody. And somehow this all makes business sense, passes some kind of cost-benefit analysis because I guess we've gotten so efficient at destroying trees that we can waste them without any real economic cost. But just because it makes business sense doesn't mean it makes sense. And destroying natural resources for no good reason is actually sick and wrong. But it makes economic sense, so that makes it okay. What are we doing? Oh, and you know what's worse? Bottled water. So, full confession. It physically and mentally hurts me to use plastic. Because I know that it basically takes petroleum, which is a resource that literally takes millions of years of geological forces to create, and when we're not just burning it up as fast as we can, we're making it into plastic, which is expressly made to be disposable and turns out to be quite toxic. But it's just so convenient because it can be molded into any shape or texture, and wow, just because we can do something, we have to find reasons to do it because that's what capitalism does. It finds a good thing and produces more and more faster and faster. And so once upon a time, we just drank water out of the sink or water fountains, and that was just fine because drinkable water was a public utility. But no, we can't have that. We need corporations providing us with water, and we need it packaged in wasteful, single-use, non-renewable materials because if it's not destroying something, it just isn't capitalism. And now we've thrown out enough plastic bottles to circle the earth a few times, and who cares? Because it somehow makes economic sense for us to do so. It's like we're going out of our way to waste as many resources as quickly as possible. The crap-based economy. It's toxic individualism literally making toxins. We don't even know or care where our crap comes from or what happens to it because all we understand is that little window of possession from the time we buy it to the time we get rid of it. Otherwise, it doesn't concern us because that's what capitalism does. It trains us not to notice anything that happens outside of our little bubble of narcissism. And that's crazy, like literally a mental disorder, or wait, you don't know that, or you'd make it stop, right? Because when it comes down to it, we don't need a fraction of all this crap. We're better off without it. It's not making us happy. It's not supplying meaning or purpose to our lives. And it is destroying our fucking habitat in the process. It's a lose-lose-lose situation. And as we see over and over again, just because something makes economic sense doesn't mean that it makes actual sense. Capitalism creates its own reality, sets up its own self-validating rules, and then pretends that this is the natural way that everything was always supposed to be. Well, wait. If it was natural, it wouldn't be destroying nature, now would it? And speaking of the unnatural, let's talk about consumerism. Now, I suppose one could make the argument that it is indeed human nature to consume. You gotta eat to live, but consumerism isn't about survival anymore now, is it? It's about appetites and desires. Getting what we want, when we want it, and enough is never enough. And part of this is just the way our big, bad human brains are built. We take all of our basic needs, the things we've been struggling for since way back when, even before we became Homo sapiens, like, things like food and shelter and clothes and love and sex and stimulation. And we keep amplifying and expanding these things over countless generations until from our instinct for shelter, we end up building skyscrapers and mansions and metropolises. Clothes aren't just there to keep us warm and unnaked. Now they come in every shape, size, and color, and we call it fashion, fun. And there's all this food. We've gotten so good at making food that now we have cuisine and supermarkets with a million different options for tomato soup. Soup! Then there's sugar. So much sugar. So, we have this biological taste for sugar, right? Back in the day when we were just wee little Homo sapiens on the savannah, calories were scarce. And we've got these big brains that need a lot of energy. So we love the sweet stuff, and we found it in fruits and honey and yummy natural sources. But now that we're all grown up, we can't stop wanting these things that we don't need anymore because the need has been fulfilled with millions of gallons of high fructose corn syrup that's literally in everything we eat and drink. But the instinct still remains. And we keep consuming more and more until it's actually bad for us. So we need sugar substitutes and diet drugs and gym memberships. And guess what? They're making money off of all of that too. Supply the demand, then supply the cure for the demand. It's a win-win-win for all the capitalists in this sick and twisted sadomasochistic clusterfuck of an economic system. And let's not even get started about how consumerism has taken our basic needs for sex and every other kind of stimulation imaginable into an info-entertainment complex of saturated sensations we're completely drowning in. Thanks, capitalism, but stop. Please make it stop. Let's face it, it's not about fulfilling needs anymore, and it hasn't been, since the Industrial Revolution kicked in. No, it's really about conspicuous consumption. So, conspicuous consumption is a term coined by the sociologist Thorstein Veblen, who was talking about status symbols. So basically, it's not enough to have power and privilege. You have to make sure everyone knows you're superior. And how do you do that? By having more stuff than you could ever possibly need. In other words, being a greedy, gluttonous show-off. So, how do you show everybody that you're large and in charge? By having the biggest house and the brightest clothes and the most everything. And that was really clear back in the day when lords were lords and peasants were peasants, and no one had the chance to be any different than the way that they were born. But no, now we have upward mobility and equal opportunity to be all we could be, and then add mass production into the mix, and now capitalism placates us all with a simulation of conspicuous consumption, because one thing capitalism is teaching all of us is how to be fake alphas. Because you guessed it, capitalism is made to feed the alphas. You have been warned. We worship the rich the same way our ancestors venerated the nobles, but now we believe we can all become kings and queens. Don't believe it, it's a trick. So the whole apparatus of consumerism is built not just to supply our endless appetites, but continually make up more things for us to need, playing on our basic instincts because those are the easiest to manipulate. And this is why capitalism is always serving the least common denominator. And this is why popularity is often the opposite of quality, because all of us are just trying to get the most bang for our buck, to want quantity over quality, to want immediate gratification over long-term sustainability. And it doesn't matter whether it's good for us in the long run, as long as it tastes good or feels good right now. And it is so funny how the capitalists and their willing victims accuse the government of providing some kind of nanny state when they intentionally treat consumers like gullible children who can be easily distracted, misdirected, or bribed with an endless supply of goodies and trinkets. Let's face it, gluttony is greed's best friend. Conservatives love to complain about the lazy poor, welfare queens sucking off the government teat at the expense of good, hardworking taxpayers. Just one of the many ways Americans love to despise the poor. But really, it's consumerism that's teaching us all to want a free ride. Everyone's dream is to strike it rich, make it big, win the lottery, play the stock market, invent the next big thing, become a star athlete, actor, singer, celebrity, influencer. It's not about hard work over a lifetime of useful employment. It's about gaming the system, the free enterprise system. And the whole purpose of this system is getting everything and everyone else to do as much of our work for us as possible. Whether that's the big, huge machine I just took my car through because I'm too lazy to spend an hour in the front yard washing it with a hose, or ordering the waiter around because the customer is always right. And of course, consumerism is a playground for the toxic individualist because it requires all of us to be competitive and selfish just in order to get by in a system that's not only out to get us, but is literally training us to be out to get each other. Why do I get mad when somebody passes me on the road? What am I, 17? Capitalism treats us like testosterone-addled teenagers. Capitalism turns us into petty tyrants because our role models are real tyrants who lord their wealth and status over the rest of us. And hell, we don't want to overthrow them. We want a piece of the action. We want to be like them. The system expects you to screw over people, and the best way to do that is make sure there is an imbalance of power so that they can't hurt you back. Fortunately, and I mean that literally, abuse of power is built right into the crap-based economy. So the first thing you do is remove people's humanity from the equation. Of course, this can be plainly seen in the adversarial relationship between management and labor. So I don't know about you, but most of the bosses I've ever worked for or even heard about have been total assholes. So much so, it seems like being a jerk is literally a job qualification. But really, it comes from the culture of capitalism, which, as you can see, reinforces the culture of cruelty that says we are all out to screw each other over. So if you're an employee, you're out to do as little work as possible for as much money as you can get. And if you're a manager, you want to work those peons as hard as you can while paying them as close to nothing as you can get away with and making damn sure you aren't giving them any benefits like healthcare or sick leave or overtime pay or any of that socialist stuff. Because managers get to be managers by acting as proxies for ownership, like good little doggies, making sure to do everything they can to maximize profit and minimize costs, especially labor costs. And so they need to make the employee just miserable enough so that they work hard but don't quit, because you want to weed out the weaklings but keep turnover rates down as well. And the workers, they just don't care. They have no emotional ties to their job. They know they're expendable. They don't care if the business burns down tomorrow. They're completely faking their way through the day, pretending to be customer friendly, pretending to be enthusiastic and helpful, plastering a big, wide Duchenne smile on their face for 8 hours straight because they're just in it for the money too. And when they get off work, then they can abuse whoever can't fight back in this great sadomasochistic cycle of displaced aggression. Because slavery is fun as long as it's happening to someone else. Capitalism allows us to be slave masters over each other. In fact, we're all exploiting people and don't even know it because we don't really care where any of our stuff comes from or what the working conditions are of the people who made it or ship it or anything. We only care what it costs. Everything is just a commodity, a product, things, people, lives, even ourselves, whose only purpose is to be bought and sold. Money ruins everything. It forces us all to dehumanize each other so we can use and be used without our inconvenient consciences or empathy getting in the way. And who thrives in a capitalist economy? Predators. That's who. And how does capitalism make ordinary human beings into predators? Let I, Dr. Pontificus, count the ways. And what better place to begin than that cesspool of gluttony-sucking greed that is the wonderful world of advertising and marketing. So, capitalism loves to tell us how it's simply supplying us, with the necessities of life and things that make us happy and more comfortable with less drudgery and pain, and it's all a complete lie. What they're really doing is creating needs and desires, telling us what we should want, feeding us images of happy people, successful people, people we should look up to and emulate, showing us who to be, how to behave, and most of all, what to consume. We let the market think for us, make decisions about what's good and bad, alleviating us of responsibility for taking care of ourselves and our world. The capitalists invest untold resources into researching how to manipulate our thoughts, our feelings, desires, appetites, playing on our need to fit in and be popular and follow the crowd, making us fall in love with things that are actually bad for us and our world. And when we do fall for it, somehow it's our fault. We're not the victim. We're just making choices. And if we get hurt or go broke, then we did it to ourselves. Caveat emptor, let the buyer beware. And again, it's just like the bully grabbing you by the arm and hitting you with your own fist, declaring, "Why are you hitting yourself? Why are you hitting yourself?" The system is about not suffering consequences for your own action, providing predators with victims who blame themselves. So we live in this world surrounded by people out to get our money away from us, out to use us, all the while telling themselves that they're doing us a favor. Sounds a little like rape, doesn't it? And I, Dr. Pontificus, do not want to live in this world, yet we cannot escape. For example, every single website I visit, whether I'm looking for a walkthrough for the video game I'm stuck on, or looking up whether the show I'm watching is based on a real story, or trying to figure out how to fix something in my house, it's so full of ads and pop-ups and other things, I can't even read what's going on the page. And call after call, text after text from numbers I don't know, pretending to help me, to fix some problem for me, telling me there's some emergency that isn't real, some disaster that's going to happen without the service they provide. Scam artists and confidence tricksters, predators, all. Saturating humanity, looking for weakness, vulnerability, trust, attacking the poor, the elderly, the disabled, the uneducated. These people aren't an unintended consequence of the system. They are the system. They are the model capitalists making money any way they can. This attitude is directly instituted into that arch master of manipulation, the salesman. These are people that have chosen to live a life dedicated to getting money out of your pocket and into theirs by any means necessary, and oh, do they have the means. Let I, Dr. Pontificus, tell you some stories. So there was this kid who came to my door one day selling magazines back in the days when, magazines were a thing. And I didn't really need any magazines. They were overpriced. And really, if I wanted a magazine, I would just go subscribe to it myself, right? But no, the magazine company needs to get some kid to go door to freaking door to sell them for some prize, like a vacation or a trip or something. So I'm trying to give him back the price list he handed me, and he's pretending not to notice that I'm doing that, as he keeps telling me what a great deal all of this is, because I guess the longer I hold on to that list, the more likely I am to buy something, and I can see that he's doing this. So I try to explain to him how he's being manipulated by his capitalist overlords, and he says no, he loves this job. He loves having the time of his life selling magazines door to door. And at this point, I'm done. You need to get off my property, because it struck me that what he loves about his job is the thrill he gets out of psychologically manipulating people and getting them to do things that they don't really want to do. Fun times, right? Predators. Then there was this time my air conditioner broke down and my wife was really pregnant, and it's Texas summer and I'm exhausted from closing in the garage so that there'll be room for the new baby. And they're having us sit down to give us this whole presentation on how we need a completely new HVAC system, starting with one that they know full well will bankrupt us. But they can't stop. They can't not prey upon potential victims whom they know are desperate and vulnerable. I just needed my air conditioner repaired. And so anytime you want a car or a house or anything big and important, you have to brace yourself to be victimized by salespeople. You have to do your own research, define what you want, how much it should cost, and stay on your guard sometimes for hours as they wear you down with promises and enticements and scare tactics to find out what your limit is and make sure you go over it, because they make a living from depriving you of yours. So let I, Dr. Pontificus, be very, very clear. Sales commission is evil and should be criminalized. It literally incentivizes predators. Good job, capitalism. Of course, predatory behavior is built into the whole idea of entrepreneurship. The dream of capitalism, making it big, involves beating someone else out of their dream, their idea, their business. If someone is eating at someone else's restaurant, that means they aren't eating at yours. So you need to take away their business and get more people into yours. In fact, really, you need to put them out of business entirely. There's never enough to go around, and your share can never be too big. And even if, like I, Dr. Pontificus, you are not interested in business at all, still the ethos of the predator, its worldview, its value system trickles down to us all, turns us selfish and paranoid. We can't even help those in genuine need, can't even hear them or feel their pain, because we suspect that everyone is always out to get us, to scam us. Which leads us right back to toxic individualism and the culture of cruelty. Now you can get rich with a clear conscience because you're just getting them before they get you. See how it works? The great circle of sadomasochism. Well, there's certainly enough of that to go around. And at the root of all this evil, the core of this ugly alpha worldview is the profit motive, aka greed. Let's just tell it like it is. It's the thing that made the 49ers slaughter all those Indians because there was gold in them there hills. Just go through every atrocity in history and you'll find obsession with wealth and power at the dark heart of it all. And all talk of mass hysteria aside, let's look at the top of the pyramid for a minute. Now, I, the humble Pontificus, cannot imagine the magnitude of wealth and power of a billionaire. The kind of godlike ideas that fill your heart and head, the kind of luxury that fills your life. But I do know this, it changes people. And once they have a taste, they'll do anything to get it and keep it. It's the most powerful drug there is. And other people, lesser people, well, they just become instruments, tools to help you get where you're going. So if you're going to run a business, you need to keep your labor costs low, and the cheapest labor, why, that's slavery, right? So that's the goal. Get more work for less, and that's called profit. So slavery may be illegal technically, but that doesn't stop a good capitalist from trying. So they try all these little ways of avoiding paying workers for working, replacing them with machines or software or AI or whatever new tech comes along. And now I have to scan and bag my own groceries because you don't want to hire more humans. And now I have to tip everyone for everything. Listen, I'm already paying for your business's goods or services. Why don't you, pay your own employees? Because I already have employers that don't want to pay me. So why am I paying for yours? Maybe my students should tip me for learning things. Wait, that is what they want, isn't it? And through the twisted logic of the economy of scale, instead of letting someone make a living by fixing all the cheap crap that breaks down in this crap-based economy, somehow it's cheaper to just throw crap away and buy new cheap crap that should have been built to last in the first place. So, just to be clear, a working economy, one that supplies goods and services to people who need it, that's not the purpose of capitalism. That is just an unintended consequence. Listen, I know this sounds crazy, but the real purpose, the main purpose of businesses should be to supply a decent livelihood for as many workers as possible, at least until we can create a society where everyone takes care of each other. But listen, employees don't just need to make decent money. We need three things. We need to feel valued. We need to feel that we're doing something valuable, and we need to feel that we have a voice in the system that employs us. This can't happen in capitalism because what that system needs is to keep people engaged through desperation, fighting for their jobs so that they're willing to do anything for any price. And it's all a big lie. Money ruins everything. We even have a name for it. It's called selling out. And it happens to everyone who gets ahead, who breaks through: athletes, inventors, artists, musicians, anyone with a good idea. Then the parasites swarm in, preying on, profiting off of the talent and brilliance and research of true geniuses who just want to create something or discover something for its own sake. But you lure them into your web with promises of fame and fortune, and it ruins them, turns them neurotic, hedonistic, perverted, so twisted with power and praise, they feel they can do no wrong, so they just keep pushing the limits of morality, of normality, and this is the goal. This is the prize for greatness, the mansion, the swimming pool, your own harem of sex slaves. It happens.
But Charlie, don't forget what happened to the man who suddenly got everything he always wanted.
What happened?
Well, he went completely insane. His soul drowning in toxic individualism. Wow, this is the life we're supposed to dream about? No, thank you. Not only does the crap-based economy corrupt everyone who quote-unquote makes it, who wins the game, it corrupts all the great works, the wonderful ideas we generate. See, the market doesn't do quality control. Quality and popularity are, you see, the opposite of each other. The crap-based economy takes good, quality stuff, then dumbs it down, or makes it flashy, sensational, or sugarcoats it, or spreads it thin, waters it down, makes cheap knockoffs of everything that's good. Why are we tolerating an economic system that turns everything into crap, including us? So it's bad enough that the crap-based economy dominates so much of our lives, but the true agenda of capitalism is to dominate all the things. And one of the many sneaky little ways capitalism does this is by convincing everyone that its crappy economic methods should be used everywhere all the time. So as someone who works in the public sector, the most dreaded and feared words I can hear are, you need to run things more like a business. That's the whole reason I work for the government. I don't like business. I don't want to be in business. I'm not driven by money or profit at all. I just want to be of service, to do something useful for society and be able to make enough money to be safe, secure, and reasonably comfortable. Wealth and opulence, they kind of make me feel ill. And I hate that I have to worry about money all the time, even though I've been working my ass off my whole life. So every time I hear those little catchphrases of capitalism, like efficiency and productivity, I get a panic attack, because what that means for the public institutions that I've dedicated my life to is that they don't want to properly fund us. It means do more with less, do more with less. Can you think of another profession other than being a teacher where you're expected to buy your own supplies? And speaking of the tyranny of efficiency, let I, Dr. Pontificus, tell you a little story. So I was at the grocery store the other day, just needed to pick up a couple of things, and I was in a hurry because I needed to be somewhere, and there was this elderly woman ahead of me, and she was taking her good, sweet time because, she could. She was very talkative and wanted to have this nice, long conversation with the cashier as she wrote out a check slowly. And I'm getting impatient because I have somewhere I need to be, and then berating myself for getting impatient and blaming the crazy fast-paced world we live in where an old woman can't talk someone's ear off. But the cashier, he's really getting impatient, and he explains that he gets in trouble if he takes too long to ring people up. And so she apologizes for taking so long and offers to explain to his manager that it's all her fault and what a good boy he is. And the cashier explains, no, you don't understand. I'm timed by a computer. And it red flags me for taking too long. And then I realized how fucked up all of this is. My need to be in a hurry, the cashier's enforced efficiency, the fact that a little old lady can't just talk as much as she wants in the grocery store line, all of this is the pressure of efficiency and productivity destroying simple, harmless human interactions. Thanks, capitalism. The crap-based economy dehumanizes us all. And on a more general level, increasing productivity just gives us more opportunity to accumulate and waste more stuff. I've got an idea. Let's be less efficient. Let's be less productive because we don't need all this crap. Perpetual growth is an unsustainable illusion. Our economy should be based on happiness, not productivity. We have enough. We're doing enough. Enough is enough. Let's be happy with less stuff that lasts longer and work fewer hours and have more space and time to relax and truly be happy. And is it really a free market if there's only one economic system to choose from? So let's look at a big fat lie with an oh so sophisticated name, laissez-faire, which is French for do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. So this is capitalism co-opting the ideals of freedom and liberty to its own nefarious ends. This is where you get capitalism's catchphrases like free enterprise, the free market, free trade, freedom from what, you may ask? Why, regulation. Government regulation specifically, but really any regulation for moral or ethical restraint whatsoever. Freedom from having a conscience. So here's how this is supposed to work. An unrestrained capitalist economy is supposed to be like a bioregion, a natural habitat. So in nature, all the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees and the land and the climate are all intertwined in an incredibly complex system of feedback loops like the food chain and the recycling of organic waste and photosynthesis and stuff, all adjusting to each other, keeping in balance and harmony as the energy of the sun cycles through myriad chemical reactions in the great circle of life and earth and water and air. It's just beautiful. And thus, the capitalist economy is supposed to work in the same way. Lots of independent buyers and sellers and manufacturers and entrepreneurs spontaneously creating this great collective web of supply and demand. And that's what the word economy literally means. It's a system where multiple actors are naturally adjusting to each other. So the myth goes that capitalism is a reflection of the natural organic order. It's what naturally happens when people enter into the free exchange of goods and services. But that is a damnable lie. This is the grand fairy tale they tell all the little boys and girls, that the market economy left to its own devices will achieve balance and harmony among all its individual agents, and even though everyone is acting in their own selfish interests, all this selfish competition makes the whole economy grow and creates wealth for everyone. Hooray! So, let me see if I've got this straight. Economies are really, really complicated, so there's no way to actually control or predict them, but that's okay, because when you put a whole bunch of people together, driven by greed and gluttony, despite themselves, they'll provide everything everyone could possibly want in the most efficient and productive way possible. Just like the natural environment does.
The point is, ladies and gentlemen, that greed, for lack of a better word, is good. Greed is right. Greed works.
Ta-da! It's like magic! And just like magic, it also isn't real. First of all, the human mind can reach heights of greed and gluttony unfathomable in the natural world. So that kind of throws the equation off, And so does the whole idea of limitless economic growth, which cannot happen in nature. Thus, the markets, they never achieve the kind of balance and harmony you see in nature. They're always running away with themselves, then crashing in this endless cycle of boom and bust. The kind of organic homeostasis that happens, say, in a healthy human body with all the natural systems that are constantly balancing out our brain chemistry and blood pressure and body temperature. Well, in a capitalist economy, this balance never quite happens because, like the human body, the market is prone to indulgence or neglect. Really, economics could work if there wasn't all that money involved. But somehow, you can't tell capitalists they're flawed. The whole system is flawed because they are toxic individualist alphas, always thinking that they are the smartest people in the room. I remember after the Great Recession of 2008, I heard a reporter interview some stockbrokers in one of their fancy overpriced bars, and they just couldn't apologize for wrecking the whole economy or thank the government for bailing them out, insisting that the reason that they make so much money is that they're smarter than everyone else and deserve it. This is what the crap-based economy does to those who play its games. It feeds their alpha egos. They hate regulation because they're like adolescents screaming, "You can't tell me what to do." Of course they hate government because deep down they're predators and they hate not being able to victimize who they want when they want, when really they should be thanking government regulation for saving them from themselves. So I, Dr. Pontificus, have often thought about learning calculus so I could better understand the mathematics of economics. But, I'm a philosopher, not an engineer. Besides, all the math, all the complex statistics and computer models, they're all just a smokescreen. Yet another way that capitalism pretends to be rational and justifiable. Because really, no one understands how markets work, and no one can predict them. So why do we keep betting on them? Because it's fun. Now, they call it speculation, but capitalist economics is actually just a great big gambling casino for the rich and rich wannabes. Now, gambling, like it or not, is a vice. And so it's not just a crap-based economy, it's also a vice-fueled economy from top to bottom. And their big solution to poverty is that we should all be playing the stock market ourselves. So, listen, I, Dr. Pontificus, do not pretend to understand how powerfully addicted this kind of gambling can be. Because to play in the market, honestly, you have to have a disposable income, and that doesn't happen for the vast majority of us, and certainly not for us teachers. We work for the government, so we have to be overworked, underpaid, and demoralized, right? But I digress. So apparently, if you have money to spare, whatever that's like, you can play all kinds of games with it and experience the roller coaster thrill ride of risk and reward. Sound exciting? No, it sounds utterly and completely frightening. So supposedly, this is all quite reasonable. You invest in enterprises that deliver goods and services in the future. The point is to research possibilities, look for enterprises with sound business plans, good organization, talented employees, and most importantly, great ideas for how to supply the future needs of humanity, and invest in a diversified mix of businesses over the long haul. And by collectively supporting them with capital, once they succeed, you get a share of profits. It totally makes sense. Does it? Except that's not how it really works. Now, is it? Instead, what really moves the market is mass hysteria. It doesn't matter at all what your company is producing as long as you can make people believe it's valuable. Thus, the whole concept of value is completely divorced from reality. What's good, what's useful, what's going to contribute to the future, it's whatever you can convince people it is so that they'll invest in your business. And the more excited you can get people, the bigger the frenzy of irrational exuberance you can work them into, the more they'll invest, because what you need is for them to invest emotionally, and their money will follow. See, it's just like advertising and marketing. It's all about mass psychological manipulation. That's the real motivation of the crap-based economy, making us see crap as gold. It's economic alchemy. So, I have an idea. How about instead of playing crazy games with the stock market, you might try, working for a living. Something productive. And it's bad enough that the capitalist free market sucks up so much of our resources and talent. It's bad enough that it makes everyone who deals with it essentially immoral. It's bad enough that it goes wrong and crashes on a regular basis, sending us into recessions or depressions so that we have to bail the capitalists out with the tax money they themselves refuse to pay. Because, listen well, friends, without government bailouts, capitalism would have collapsed under the weight of its excesses long, long ago. Because it doesn't know how to stop. Capitalism can't get to the first step of every 12-step program ever and admit it has a problem. It needs an intervention. But the real problem with this gambling den is that it penetrates our whole economic culture and literally hits us where we live. For example, in the housing market. So I don't know about you, but what I want from a house is a safe, secure, and comfortable place to live and raise my children. It's not a financial investment, it's my home. But because it's part of market economics and I need a substantial loan to purchase it, now my hearth and home is at the whims of property values. So the value of my house can rise and fall, affecting the amount of my mortgage and escrow, whatever even is that, for reasons that have nothing to do with me at all. Just how attractive everyone else thinks my city or my neighborhood is, I don't want anything to do with any of this. I want to buy a house and just live in it. Maybe do some home improvement projects, but no, capitalism forces me to live in their world, victimized by market forces I don't understand and can't control. And the job market is exactly the same way. We can't just follow our passion, follow our talents. We can't have a calling that isn't approved by whatever capitalism deems is a valuable profession this month. It's completely arbitrary what kinds of jobs the market values and what kinds it doesn't value. But somehow it's our fault if we pick the wrong dream. And because I, Dr. Pontificus, chose to be a teacher instead of, say, an accountant, I am destined to lead a life of debt and deprivation. Is teaching less work than accounting? Is it doing less of a service for society? According to capitalism, it is. And you see this everywhere, this massive disconnect between work and pay. Does the CEO of a corporation literally do thousands of times more work than an entry-level employee? Because he literally gets paid thousands of times more. And when things happen beyond the control of anyone on the ground, when jobs get outsourced or workers get replaced with technology or a pandemic hits and the restaurant you dreamed of goes bankrupt, it's nothing personal, it's just market forces. We let the market think for us. Make decisions about what's good and bad, right and wrong, who can make a living and who can't, hell, who can afford to get sick and who cannot. And that, my friends, is but one of the many ways the crap-based economy, capitalism, is sick and wrong. Because in the end, dear friends, it's all a trap. Here's the dirty little secret of capitalism. Its sole purpose is to work us to death, literally. We work our asses off day after day, year upon year, just trying to get by, maybe get ahead a little. And we're so spent at the end of the day that we can't even relax, enjoy the fruits of our labor. What fruits? And by the time we get to retirement, if we make it that far, we are completely used up and so conditioned by working our lives away that we don't even know what to do with ourselves. And then we die. Because what is really driving us to work ourselves into the ground is this ever-present, unending desperation. That there's not enough jobs or houses or stuff to go around, that if you slip up for even a moment, it will all fall apart and you'll end up destitute or homeless or even just a rung further down on the ladder of success. But we still buy into the system that's sucking our lives away, buy into the next big thing, the next update or upgrade, needing bigger, better, newer everything, and with it the soul-crushing debt that clings to us like a creeping cancer until we're having to work 2 or 3 jobs just to keep up with all the bills and payments. My own children and my high school students are just entering the workforce, and already they feel the meaningless exhaustion of it all. We're maxed out all the time, and there's no response but stoicism. Tough it out. Power through. If you can't make it, you're weak and you will be left behind. Burnout? We should be proud to burn out. It means we're pulling our weight. It's the culture of cruelty. See? A trap that we willingly step into because we think it's the only way it's supposed to be. But guess what? Materialism, all this stress and strain doesn't actually make you happy. Guess what does, folks? Oh, it's kindness, compassion, service, and giving. Surely you already know that. Capitalist economics isn't just divorced from reality. It constructs an unnatural reality, then claims it to be the real world. Like so many aspects of the rabid right-wing world, capitalism normalizes behaviors and motives that the rest of us call psychological disorders. It rewards the dark triad of narcissism, Machiavellianism, and antisocial behavior. Ruthless, selfish, uncaring, these are the traits that will get you to the top. And let's talk about the so-called type A personality, obsessive, workaholic perfectionists with no time for their own families and no tolerance for anyone who wants a life-work balance. You know, heart attacks waiting to happen. And these are the capitalist role models for us all? The crap-based economy is so enmeshed in the culture of cruelty that you can't really tell them apart. But all the pain and fear and stress and strain that the system inflicts upon us all is not actually good for us. It doesn't actually help us be more productive. It doesn't motivate us to be better and stronger. In fact, it kills us slowly, takes a toll on our mental and physical health. It shortens our lives and makes us miserable all along the way. There are studies of animals in the wild, like birds, who live in habitats with a lot of predators. It doesn't make them stronger. It makes them sick and crazy, and they stop reproducing. Even in nature, this competitive apex predator world is sick and wrong. We can do better. So in capitalism, the only thing that keeps you from being selfish is your own selfishness. That if you milk somebody dry, they'll go elsewhere for your goods and services. Wow, that's how drug dealers think. And they're good capitalists too. There are studies that show that more affluent high school students lack basic empathy. So the richer you are, the less you think of others, that the rich are not in tune with the suffering of other humans. That sounds like a psychopath to me. And then there's the paranoia the rich inflict upon themselves, not simply living in gated communities or otherwise segregating themselves from the rest of us, but there are movements among the most wealthy to build shelters, whole towns for their post-apocalyptic utopias, military fortresses and bunkers to protect themselves from the collapse of society that they themselves have brought about. We teach our children that lying and manipulation and selfishness are wrong, yet throw them into an economic system where that's expected and encouraged. I see this in my high school students all the time, especially boys, whose dream is to become billionaires. And if it means hurting others along the way, well, that's the name of the game, man. I see students scamming each other, charging each other for favors, charging interest for loaning lunch money because the best way to make money is to screw someone else out of theirs. So we live in this world that rewards predators and parasites, that openly and enthusiastically violates basic moral principles like do unto others as you'd have them do unto you, or that everyone has inalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That means everyone's happiness, right? Not just mine at the expense of yours. I remember that time as a kid when I realized how much I was being deceived by advertisements that everyone is out to get me and what little money I have. So it's not just a psychological disorder, it's a moral disorder. But we don't care because capitalism, this crap-based economy, has dehumanized us all from feeling each other's pain. So in capitalism, it all comes together. The alpha's compulsion to dominate and control and exploit, the culture of cruelty, blaming victims for their own suffering, the toxic individualism of self-absorption, it's all here. Remember, the big progressive moral principle, the definition of being woke: abuse of power is wrong, even if I personally benefit from it. Capitalism is morally wrong and psychologically damaging. Money ruins everything. It destroys people's souls. In the end, capitalism can't make us happy or help us solve our big, collective, long-term problems because its heart isn't in the right place. Listen, for the record, the liberal stance on capitalism is pretty even-handed. There are things business is good at, and there are other things that government is best suited for, and could there be a more moderate statement? Now, there are occupations and operations where the profit motive just doesn't belong. Education is not about money, for instance. It's about preparing the next generation to be healthy, happy, and making positive contributions to the future. College is not just about making money either. It's not a vocational training program, but we've withdrawn so much funding from universities and the whole education system, offloading the cost onto the students, while training our youth to be so afraid of not making a living that they only go into majors with income potential. We don't need worker bees. We need educated citizens capable of making good decisions about public policy in a very complex and crazy world. College is not about money, and neither is healthcare. Profiting from the sick? Why, that's just plain immoral, isn't it? Having your level of care dependent upon your income, now that's sick. Listen, doctors should get paid, nurses should get paid, anesthesiologists should get paid, but shareholders, otherwise known as professional gamblers, have nothing to do with healthcare and should stay out of it. Profit needs to stay out of law enforcement, the prison system, making money from incarceration. That's kind of like slavery. Just saying. And we should be able to express ourselves creatively, work on our own little labors of love like this humble podcast without trying to monetize every single thing we do. Listen, as a lifelong educator, I, Dr. Pontificus, live to serve, to do good, to improve the lives of my students and my community. I don't do it for the money. I don't do it because it makes me feel warm and tingly inside. I do good because it's the right thing to do. I don't want to be rich. I don't want extravagance. Moderation makes me happy. But I don't deserve to be buried in debt after a lifetime of service. None of us do. This crap-based economy is, at its core, inhuman and inhumane, where caring for others is an unintended consequence or an afterthought, a diversion from its main goal to satisfy greed and gluttony. It embodies the culture of cruelty, the barbaric vestige of the war of all against all. Maybe not with weapons, but economic violence is violence just the same. We're past this. We don't need to create hardship. Life does that just fine all by itself. We need an economic system that is directly and expressly concerned with taking care of each other, making people happy, giving our lives true meaning and purpose, focused explicitly on service, where no one has more than they know what to do with, or so little they can't function, where everyone has dignity and treats each other with respect, where we can learn from each other and grow with each other, where we can all feel like we belong. Naive? Idealistic? No. Aspirational. Our way. the progressive way is better. First, we set our intention to do good. Then the rest slowly, surely follows. This is the way. This is the way forward.
Take me to the fair. Hit me, Audie!
And that's it for now, folks. I, the eponymous Pontificus, thank you for your kind attention. The Dr. Pontificus podcast comes to you from the deep, dark heart of the American Midwest. Our theme music is by the Great Orange Mothers, awesome Austin band from ages of yore. Until next time, fight the good fight, but don't be a hater. And remember, friends, please don't feed the alphas. Dr. Pontificus bids you good day.